Welcome to the Fright Files. Good evening. My name is Chris Harmon, but you can call me Dr. Fright. Tonight, you will hear 7 frightful tales, ranging from the least frightful to the downright deadly. Before we begin, ask yourself one question. Can you make it to number 7? I call this story The Apparition. In 1936, a photographer taking pictures of a 300-year-old hall in Norfolk, UK, captured an image of an apparition floating down the stairs. It's one of the most famous ghost photos ever taken. The manor, covering an area of 7,000 acres, has a long history of being haunted. And the BBC notes that the ghost may be of Lady Dorothy Townshend, the wife of the second Viscount of the estate. She died in 1726, supposedly of smallpox, after having an affair with her husband, Lord Townshend. Lord Townshend had learned about the affair before her death. She is said to still wander the manor, dressed in brown. Let's move on to tale number 2. I call this The Skeleton. Hampton Court Palace in Surrey, England, has a photogenic ghost of its own. In 2003, a CCTV camera caught an image of a skeleton figure clad in cemetery old clothing. Closing a sturdy fire door that had flung open, the ghost, nicknamed the Skeletor, attracted a great deal of media attention. It wasn't just security staff who thought they were seeing things. A young visitor wrote in the palace visitor book on the day the Skeletor appeared that she thought she had seen a ghost in that area. Skeletor is not the only ghost inhabitant of Hampton Court Palace. One of Henry's wives was imprisoned there and was supposedly dragged to her room, screaming all the way. The area that she haunts is called the Screaming Gallery. Before we continue, is anybody scared yet? Let's move on to story number 3. And before we begin, I want to welcome all the fans in the chat room, because if you have made it this far, you are a fan of Dr. Fright. I call this story The Red Lady. This urban legend dates back to 1910, but almost any student of Huntington College, Montgomery, Alabama, should recognize it. Why? That's because the events that led up to it are said to have actually happened. As the story goes, in 1910, a young woman who was new to the school was known for her love of the color red. But sadly, she was also known for being strange and a loner. As the first term got underway, the young woman grew increasingly isolated. Eventually, she took her own life by slashing her wrist. Her body was discovered in a red gown, drenched in all her blood. From then on, students and faculty have been reporting sightings of a young woman dressed all in red. She appears all around the college campus. The figure, dwelling in perpetual isolation, is often cited as a reminder of the importance of being kind to one's peers. Now this next story may be too much for some to handle, but if you're frightful enough to take the next plunge, then I call this story The Tower. Britain castles are hotspots for ghost stories. The 900-year-old town of London is said to contain numerous ghosts, and the Queen's House is considered by tower officials to be one of the most haunted places in the world. Amongst the ghosts in the Queen's House is that of Arabella Stuart, cousin of King James. Arabella made the mistake of marrying against the king's wishes and was sent to the Tower as punishment. I repeat, sent to the Tower as punishment. According to Ghost Story, she is still serving her time sentence. In another spooky tale, a phantom bear is said to haunt one sector of the Tower of London. called the Martin Tower. A guard who saw the phantom bear is said to have dropped dead from the shock. The Tower of London serves as a massacre for part of its history, including bears. Let's move on. How many frightful watchers do we have that have ever taken an ambulance ride? Have you ever been in a haunted ambulance? I call this story the ambulance that yells back. You may know about haunted hotels. You've heard of haunted hospitals. But have any of you ever heard of a haunted ambulance? The ambulance company that I used to work for, says the witness, had a haunted ambulance, rig number 12. A lot of EMTs had stories about it, but I never put much stock into paranormal stuff. That is until the night I had my own experience with rig number 12. You see, my partner and I were working in a rural community at 3 a.m. in the morning. It was pitch dark and completely quiet. Neither one of us was saying a word to the other. We were dozing on and off. I was in the driver's seat. She was in the passenger seat. I woke up to hear a muffled voice, but I thought my partner was talking. So I simply said to her, "I'm trying to sleep." So I closed my eyes. That's when I heard it. That's when I heard the voice of a male. The voice says, "Oh my God, am I dying?" Followed by a few seconds of heavy breathing. My partner and I sat straight up and looked back into the compartment. But we couldn't find anything. In fact, things got quiet. Then we heard the click of an oxygen bottle and a hiss as if it was leaking. I turned on the lights and we ran out of the rig. I thought somebody had climbed in the back. When I opened the rear door, no one was there. I checked the oxygen bottles. None of them were open. The witness says all he could do was sit there, wide awake for the remainder of the evening. want to say hello to all my frightful fans in the audience. If you've made it this far, congratulations. Let's move on to tale number 6. Warning, this tale may be too frightful for some listeners and viewers. As this tale involves murder, blood, guts, and glory. Maybe not glory. It depends how you look at it. I call this story The Ghost of Tupo. Tupo was an ancient Chinese ghost with revenge on his mind. Tupo served as a minister to Chinese Emperor Huzan in 827 BC. The two had a disagreement, and Huzan had Tupo killed in about 786 BC. Now, despite warnings that Tupo would come back and haunt, and that's exactly what Tupo did, a lot more than haunt. 3 years later, in 783 BC, Huzan was killed with an arrow fired by an apparition resembling Tupo in front of an assembly of lords. Hundreds of lords watched in amusement. That brings us to story number 7, the final story of the evening. Congratulations if you've made it this far. I call this story The Dome. Witness reports, I found myself in a peculiar state of drowsiness, walking away from my team of 8 construction workers. Less than 10 meters away, on a slope, I saw a man. His head was covered with a glass helmet, with a visor coming down to his chest. He wore gray overalls and short boots. In his hand, he held an elongated object, which could have been a pistol or could have been a metal rod. On his chest was a light. He was standing in front of a large shining dome, which floated about 3 feet off the ground. Above the machine were objects like rotating wings or blades. Then suddenly, the strange man vanished. I couldn't explain how. Just vanished. He didn't vanish from my field of vision. He didn't vanish by walking away. Just vanished like an image on an eraser board. Suddenly, I heard a strange whistling sound. The dome rose by successful jerks. And then, it too was erased in sort of a blue haze. I asked, and 6 of my teammates also confirmed these details. Congratulations, you have made it through all 7 frightful stories. You have been listening and watching to the Fright Files, Episode 1. My name is Chris Harmon, but you can call me Dr. Fright. In our next episode, we will have more frightful tales. Each tale, each episode gets more and more frightening. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. See you next time on the Fright Files.